So today's video is about the BenQ EX2780Q. This is a higher end monitor, part of BenQ's premium gaming lineup that's there, and it has a lot of features that are both beneficial to gamers and professionals alike. So let's just go over the raw specs very quickly. It's 27-inch, 1440p, 144 Hz refresh rate with FreeSync Premium, 5 millisecond gray-to-gray response time, entry-level HDR10 with VESA Display HDR 400 certification, plus what BenQ calls their HDRI functionality. We'll talk about that in a little bit. 95% DCI-P3 color gamut support, full 100% sRGB cover, contrast ratio of 1000 to 1, dynamic contrast ratio of 20 million to 1, and I think I mentioned it's IPS, but in case I didn't, it's also IPS. So all the specs that you would want for gaming, and all of the color spaces and color representation and viewing angles that you would need for a more professional end monitor. So it has everything that you would want, and it doesn't obviously stand out. It doesn't scream gamer. It comes in this more metallic browns. I mean, yeah, that's basically the word for it, because it's kind of brown, but also bronze-ish. So it's browns. BenQ's Browns monitor. Just talking about the build quality for a second, the monitor stand's made of metal, feels incredibly sturdy, and it has built-in cable routing system, and it's also VESA compatible, very slim bezels, would look pretty good as a multi-monitor setup if I do say so myself. The back I/O, you got two HDMI 2.0, DisplayPort 1.4, and USB-C with PD 10 watt support, and a built-in headphone jack in case you're one of those weird people who put headphones on monitors. Do you do that, Reece?
I do not do that.
I don't know anybody who uses their monitor for headphones, so I'm confused why this is a standard feature. This is not against BenQ. I've actually just been wondering this on a personal level for a while. Anyways, this bottom chin down here features BenQ's ambient light sensor, which they call BenQ's Brightness Intelligence Plus, which adjusts the display based on the current light that it's receiving and tries to make it match the environment. And you also have speakers down here, which were designed by Trevolo, who BenQ has worked with on their electrostatic speakers before, which look phenomenal. BenQ, if you're watching this, which I presume you are because you sent us the monitor, I would like to try out the Trevolo speakers, and two of them because they work in stereo. I've watched reviews. I want to see them. Anyways, the Trevolo speakers in here are two 2-watt front-facing speakers in the bottom chin bezel and a 5-watt subwoofer at the back end. There is a 5-watt sub in this monitor. It also has a dedicated volume rocker for quick access in case that's your thing, and it's got typical menu controls and all of that, everything that you would want, and a dedicated remote. It's got that too, so you can, turn it on and off with the remote, which is nice. The remote's responsive enough. We'll get to that in a second. It also has this like little rubber doorstop to keep it in there and just keep it in the base tucked away like that. So actually, let's talk about like my impressions of the monitor, because honestly, I really, really enjoy it. 27-inch, 1440p, 144 Hz, all in the right sweet spot. The FreeSync works flawlessly, no issues there. IPS panels are always good for gaming because you can sit wherever you want. You can honestly lean back in your chair like an animal and destroy your back and be totally fine seeing everything that you're supposed to see on the monitor. The basic HDR support that's on this, and I say very basic, it's very entry level, is, I mean, honestly, can we stop calling it HDR if it doesn't have high brightness, because it's only a 350 nit panel. Like BenQ, I know it's VESA certified, but HDR really needs like 600 to 1000 nits brightness. That's just like, otherwise it's not, it's just, you are adjusting contrast ratios and it looks better, but not in any sort of objective HDR, actual true HDR development sense. So they do have their HDRI functionality, which helps you to adjust the monitor's response curves depending on the type of content that you're viewing. But again, with 350 nits brightness, is it HDR? Not really. And the speakers, let's talk about the speakers for a second. They don't sound like complete garbage like most monitor speakers. I mean, two 2-watt speakers up front and then a 5-watt subwoofer at the back. It does really well. Reece has been using this and testing this in his room for a while, and he uses it to watch all of his movies from his bed, and he just keeps it on his desk. And that's his preferred method of choice, even though I literally gave him $200 Bluetooth speakers that he could also be using. Even though I literally gave you two. So he chooses to use the monitor over actual decent, and the audio engine, what are they called? Audio engine 2 somethings? A2 Plus. He chooses to use this, if that tells you anything. The remote actually isn't such a gimmick, especially since Reece has been using this for remote content consumption stuff. He uses this to, activate it while he's in bed. The only complaints that we really have about this is the fact that if you're like trying to increase the volume like so, it takes forever. It doesn't have like a speed up once you've been holding it down. So yeah, I've been holding this down and we just hit full volume just then. Yeah, it's kind of slow. It's responsive, but it's slow. And then the only other major gripe we have is the monitor stand, which I guess should have been talked a little bit about in the physical design. There is only a 20-degree tilt adjustment, no height, swivel, rotation. It's kind of just where it is, which makes sense more on a professional level. I guess you can put it on a VESA arm if you actually need full mobility. So it's not such a downside. Everything about this monitor is rock solid. The viewing angles are great, limited ghosting on everything, 5 millisecond response time, IPS, 1440p, 144 hertz. It's hard to really go wrong with this. Exceptional gaming performance, especially from an IPS panel, so solid professional usage, all of that. Again, the cons, only 350 nits max brightness, and then the attempts to talk about HDR in the context of lack of brightness. Speed up the remote, please. We need to be able to hit max volume much faster. The 10 watt PD over USB-C isn't enough to sustain most basic laptops. It's kind of there, I guess, to charge your phone, which is okay, but if you're using USB-C out and you're trying to also charge off of one cable, it just doesn't work. Your laptop's gonna eventually die. Like, it's there to give it extra battery life, and that's about it. So overall, this is actually a great work play monitor that can suit, basically, if you have a home office that you also use to game, this thing would go right into it, the BenQ EX2780Q. We could talk about the price for a second. It normally goes for what BenQ says is $600, which is too high of a price. Currently, it is selling for $450 on Amazon and B&H, which actually is pretty competitive in the current 1440p, 144 hertz region. There are a couple of other options that you can go for. There's the LG 27-inch Ultra Gear, which is also QHD, 144 hertz, G-Sync compatible, IPS, but that one's 1 millisecond response time instead of 5 milliseconds on this, and that's $485. So it is more expensive to go with the LG, and you're gonna miss some features like the classy design of the BenQ, as well as the actual decent speakers built into this, which normally is not in consideration in any monitor review we've ever done. But the fact that BenQ and Trevolo have worked out something in this monitor that actually sounds really decent is kind of cool. So you could take that into consideration as well, that you could use this as more of like an all-in-one content consumption device. And then the LG Ultra Gear is just kind of like, it's a gamer monitor. This one's more classy and refined, and it works really well in Reece's setup, which we're gonna have a dedicated video on that coming soon. Reece's setup, my setup, Catlin's setup. We're gonna show you all of our PC setups because we got a lot going on, so that's cool. Anyways, thank you again, BenQ, for sending over the EX2780Q. Really appreciate it. We can recommend it at the $450 price. I would have to say heck no at $600. I would go with a different option regardless of the speakers, but we do appreciate you sending it over, and I think that's it. That's gonna wrap it up. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Get subscribed, stay up to date on all of our tech-related content. Reece, do you want your monitor back now?
I do.
Reece wants it back. I gotta go, guys. Bye, guys. It is a heckin' good monitor, has the specs. That's a good cup and slap sound. Has all of the specs. I was surprised at how solid it was.